Hi, Sai.
Hi, good afternoon, Kirti.
Good afternoon. You prepared well?
Yes, I prepared. All right.
Okay. So, as I mentioned, from our team, Aditya, he is a director, and Rajat. Rajat, I think you already spoke to him, no? I think for Java, he only took an interview.
I think yes.
Yes, he only took an interview. So, these two people will join from our side.
Okay.
Let's wait for them to join in.
Okay.
Hmm? Okay. So, once they join, you can turn on your camera.
Okay.
Rajat is joined. Good afternoon, Rajat.
Good afternoon, Rajat.
Good afternoon, Saira.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So, Sai Ram, can you please turn on your camera?
Yeah.
Rajat, Aditya sir is joining.
No, no, I think not.
Should I check with him or you will continue?
No, no, I will continue.
Okay, done.
Okay. So, I think Sai Ram, we have met before.
Yes, 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 Rajat. We have
Yeah,
met
yeah.
before.
Yes. So, nice to meet you again. Can
Yeah,
you
nice to
please
meet you.
go quickly with your can you please quickly go with your introduction?
Pardon?
Can you please quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, myself, Pendyala Venkata Sairam. So,
Hmm.
I'm basically from Andhra Pradesh. I'm currently working in MISO as a senior full stack developer for Connective
Yeah.
Future. I have 7+ years of experience in training. So I have worked with about 40 plus batches, and I have worked with a lot of colleges in and around Bangalore. So, for example, I have worked with St. John's Christ, uh, Don Bosco, KLE, etc. And I have handled students ranging from 40 to 60 average size per batch and up to 100 students. And I have delivered in Java, Python, C, C++, cybersecurity, and cloud. So these are the various topics I have covered. Python also. Did I mention Python? I think I mentioned Python. Okay. So I have handled BTech, BCA, MCA, BSc students, uh, and I have also worked for like Bytexcel in Parole University, Vadodara, for their CSR program by Capgemini. Uh, for women transformation, where I taught Java. Uh, that's it.
Okay. Okay. That's enough.
Mm.
So, can you please explain me what is VPC and VNets?
So VPC and VNet are like virtual networks which are not managed by you. They are managed by AWS or Azure, and
Yeah.
you can use those instead of purchasing expensive hardware equipment to do the your own routing. I mean routing and networking for your organization.
Yeah, so, how will you explain the VPC subnets, public subnet and private subnet in a
Okay,
real life example?
okay. We can think of organization. Let's suppose it's a mm, yeah, it's a fintech organization or something. So let's think
Uh,
that the fintech organization got a transaction. So it will
Okay.
get a transaction through its public IP. So the public IP, all those you will describe in your VPC or VNet, depending on you are on AWS or Azure. Then what you are going to do, it is going to, if your subnet is actually public, then what will happen is whatever the service you are linking to that subnet, you are registering for that subnet, that's where the traffic will go. If not, if there is a private subnet, you are not going to expose the data or the traffic to the public IP. So it's for internal consumption. Like the transaction will come, you will verify if the transaction is valid, if you, the account holder has sufficient money in his account. All those things you will be using the private subnet to check those, and then you are again going to use the public subnet to uh, get back to your user with a transaction success or failed.
Okay. Uh, Sairam, imagine there is a Python script
Hmm.
that fetches the data from API, right? So how will you explain what is JSON to the fresher and what is the importance of the JSON?
Okay, we can tell JSON is basically a universal language that is used across different uh, technologies, be it web technology, be it different programming languages. So it is a common understood language which can be understood by various different technologies, be it like Python or you are using JavaScript. If you are using a web application, obviously you are working with JavaScript. But if you are doing scripting, you are using Python, as you mentioned. So what you are going to do is you are going to fetch the JSON, whatever the output. Generally, you will get a output as a JSON. You can get it as other objects as well if you want. But generally, the norm is you will get it as a JSON object. Then what you're going to do is you're going to parse it by either checking the key and key. If you know the key, you can easily check the value, or else you can have some JSON formatting, like if you get this, what should be the value, you can validate it, and you can accordingly proceed with your scripting.
What is JSON? As
Okay,
a student, I want to know what is JSON. Yeah,
so it is a JavaScript, JSON, object notation, I think. JSON.
yeah. That's long form for JSON, right?
That's the
But
full form.
how do you? Yeah. But how do you explain that? What is JSON to me?
Okay, you can think of JSON like a translator, like a translated, like a common language like English. If you are in India, obviously you will be having a lot of different languages. You need some sort of a common language so that you can talk with everyone and you can communicate between different people. If you, even if you don't understand, like if let's suppose you are from Bangalore, you know Kannada, and I am from Maharashtra or something, I know Marathi. So I might not be knowing Marathi. So how do I communicate with you? So I'll be communicating in English. So similarly, JSON facilitates this kind of standardized understanding between services. So that's how you can think of JSON. You can think of it as something that is used to communicate between two different people or two different services, servers, anything, API, and you to parse the API or anything. So you can do that using JSON because it's industry standard for us to understand how English is standardized in professional settings in India. Similar to that.
Okay. So can you explain me the difference between Docker image and Docker container?
Okay, Docker image is nothing but whatever you are uploading to the Docker Hub. That's what your Docker image is, and whatever you are pulling from there, that's the image, and whatever you are running is the container. So
Okay.
you will pull the image from the Docker Hub, and you will create you will push your image to the Docker Hub, and you will run the image as a container.
So, Hiram, uh, what's the use of Kubernetes here? Can you explain me that?
Okay, Kubernetes comes into picture when you are talking about a large scale. So very large scale, or you are having like microservice architecture. you're using microservice architecture or you're having a very large scale. So in general, what used to happen before Kubernetes or microservice architecture, most of the services, let's take example for Netflix used to be a monolithic architecture up till 2016, I think. That after 2016 they fully transitioned to microservice architecture, and they had to use Kubernetes because it helps with facilitating the uh, what you call the management of the containers. So whatever images you are building for the various microservices, you are going to use those as containers, and you want to ensure that the containers which will be termed as pods in Kubernetes are actually running per service. You can have like you can define how many pods or how many containers you want, so that ensures that if suppose any thing happens and the pod is down, you can have like self-healing automatically inside the Kubernetes script. When you're initializing, you can mention the number of containers. You will write containers colon, and you will mention 3 5, how many ever you want, based on how much resources you are having. So that helps with each containers staying alive, so that the container doesn't go down. uh, and another advantage is uh, uh, you can use Kubernetes for mm, what else? What should I say? You can use Kubernetes for scaling. I forgot to mention scaling. So when scaling comes into picture, let's suppose you are having HPA in Kubernetes, which will allocate more resources based on the traffic, how much ever you can set it based how many pods you want to allocate. Everything you can mention in the HPA, as well as you can use the Terraform to allocate the cloud resources to the Kubernetes, to let the HPA allocate more pods for the each service, how many ever service you want. So that's where scaling comes into picture. So when you're having like let's suppose default you're having 100 customers, you're having 100 customers, and you're using Kubernetes, maybe 50 services you're using, and you're having 3 pods as per service. Then when you're having like a uh, traffic, you're having like 200 users instead of 100 users. What you can do is you will write some script where you will monitor the CPU utilization or the memory utilization per pod. And based on that you can scale up the number of pods, and you can allocate more pods, so that you won't face service downtime. So that's
So, okay. So, Sairam, when you suggest to use a Docker container and when to use Kubernetes?
okay. When we will use Kubernetes is when we are going for like larger scale applications. uh, that's when we want to use Kubernetes. And in Kubernetes we have lot of different uh, types of Kubernetes we are having. Like if you are using like Kubernetes using the platform, like a cloud platform like EKS or
Yeah.
Azure, that they will automatically handle all the configuration for you. You don't need to manually scale up or scale down based on uh, generally what happens if you're doing a local installation of kubectl, you are going to manually set the number of containers. You need to manually, or you need to write a script, or you need to do some sort of log checking, so that you can manually scale it up. So that's how you are going to do. Generally we in educational scenarios you are going to use Kubernetes inside Docker itself. You won't do it directly. Generally what I have seen, that's what they are doing. They won't do like directly, but you can also try K3s. K3s is for Kubernetes for IoT device. You can use it there. uh, that's where you are going to use microservice architecture, and when you are serving a large number of people, that's when you're going to use Kubernetes. But if you're having a small scale or a monolithic architecture, so that you're
Okay.
not going to use Kubernetes, because Kubernetes is going to be resource intensive if you look compared to normal containers. If you're going to do a normal container, comparative to Kubernetes, it's going to more resource intensive, and it is more complex to set up. You need to make your application suitable for Kubernetes as well. So that's some considerations you need to take into consider when you take into consideration if you are going ahead with Docker or Kubernetes, based on the scale of the app, based on the architecture of the application you're going to use.
So, Sairam,
Hmm.
if I'm using the Kubernetes,
Hmm.
so how will you explain me the TCO for total cost optimization for that
TCO for Kubernetes.
Kubernetes? Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so you need to look at per hour how much you are going to be billed from the uh, various platforms. If you're using Azure, you're going to check there, and you're going to check per hour how much they're charging. Generally, what I remember, if it is correct or not, I don't remember. It's charged at $80 per EKS per month, I think, for a
Okay.
small scale EKS. And if it is, it's up to ten
So,
thousand dollars
uh,
for a EKS yearly subscription, I think, on
okay.
Amazon.
So how will you advise me to optimize the cost?
So based on we need to first check what is your requirement. So let's
Yeah,
suppose whatever your requirement is, let's suppose it's a e-commerce website or something. So what we are going to see is we are going to see what is the regular usage of how many people are visiting the site, how many people are accessing the database, how much storage we need, how much compute we need, how much RAM we need. All these we need to first calculate, and we need to set a budget for it. And then we need to set
yeah,
a budget for if there is some downtime, if there is a error, then you need to have some how fast you're going to restart your service, how what are the priorities for backup. All these things you need to take into consideration, and you need to per hour basis you need to calculate each and every service, bill it against your current. Suppose, let's suppose you are doing a private, you are on a private cloud. You are maybe orchestrating everything using a in-house IT team. You're paying them salary, and they are managing using your internal servers. You want to
yeah,
move to cloud, and you want to check the you need to do analysis, you need to do cost analysis based on how much you're paying your IT team, how much it's charging you for the infrastructure upgradation, how much you paid for the initial infrastructure, how much for maintenance, for electricity, etc. you're paying. You check those first. Then next, what you're going to do, you are going to map the same structure whatever is there, and you need to plan a migration plan from your on premises to cloud. If you don't want to invest in software development to recalibrate it for your specific cloud partner, whatever you choose, you are going to use EC2. But in EC2 you're not going to have auto scaling.
lot
Generally
of selling.
you won't have auto
Yeah,
scaling inbuilt. So you are going to need to be monitoring the logs yourself. If you are using EC2 to deploy kube CTL inside the EC2 instance, let's suppose you have a Ubuntu server running on a EC2. Inside that you are installing kube CTL, and inside that you are running your cluster. You're running your
okay.
cluster, and whatever you are doing on the premises, you don't need to change one line of code. Same thing exact, you can take it and you can deploy it on EC2. But that
Yeah,
is generally going to be expensive. What you need to do is you need to look at little bit of if you are having little budget, you can think about going for little bit of software, editing the whatever code base you are having to enable it to be capable of working on EKS or something like that. Or you can go for some other service, if like maybe Azure is providing Kubernetes services at a lower cost, you can go for them or something like that. Or you can, if you want, if you are a very rich company, you have your priority is compliance or security. You are going to ensure that you are on a multi-cloud platform. You won't be seeing that you are inside a particular you partnered up with only Azure or only with AWS. You will look for other options as well. You are going to do that for data redundancy as well as disaster recovery. Both you want to ensure that. Or and they also have some generally like JP Morgan or something. I think is partnered up with Azure and Microsoft, if I'm not wrong. They moved into the cloud infrastructure on 2019, I think, completely to cloud infrastructure. They are having a hybrid kind of system. So they have they have installed they these Azure or yeah, AWS provides for private cloud players, like large players, for private cloud players for a hybrid system. What they're going to do for the internal system, they are going to provide their operating system, whatever the cloud whatever their cloud server is, whatever, however they are running it, they're going to give version of that for them to run on their internal servers, and those internal servers are going to be connected to the cloud platform to synchronize the data and move across everything. So it depends on the budget the company has, what is their current expenditure they are having for their current maintenance, for their current service, whatever. If they are not thinking of any future product or any scaling up in the future, they can either stay on their existing setup, or they can look at if cloud is going to provide them a better alternative. Like if you look at startups, generally they will opt for cloud because they don't need to invest directly into the infrastructure. You can if you look at the market right now, the prices of rams and storages are outrageous. So you can't afford to purchase and build your own server on your own. And generally a network and what you call server grade equipment is costly. So for a commercial PC, you can build it up for, like, let's say 1 lakh or 2 lakh. That same kind of configuration for a server grade equipment which is designed to run in hot conditions without fans, with a server fan running on them, uh, 24/7, no downtime, with ECC memory, so that there is error checking in the RAM and you catch the errors in the RAM itself. All those things are expensive. So you need to invest at least 10 lakhs for that. For a startup, that is not a viable option. So that's why you will see in India, because we don't have large uh, generally startups in India, what I have seen is they will opt for AWS or AWS only. Generally in India, AWS is more famous, so they will use AWS, and they will opt for only if they know some IT knowledge already. So they will opt for EC2, which is little bit slightly cheaper. And if they don't know how much their traffic is going to be, they're going to hit with a huge traffic, they're going to opt for Elasticbean or something, where they
Right.
are only going to manage their
So
application.
how can so Saira, how can I monitor the cost?
You are
Is
having
there any measure?
there is a you can track your costs in the platform itself, AWS or Azure itself. There is a
Can
billing
I set up the
section.
limit?
You
Can I set
can
up the limit for that?
when you're doing the subscription, you can your subscription will be pay as you give on Azure, I think. On AWS, on Azure, it is pay as you go. So pay as you go, and it has some free quotas, like per month it has some hours limited. If you cross the threshold, they are going to charge you per hour on a hourly basis, or based on traffic. Even networking is charged. So you need to pay for all those things. You can set up your own by default. If you look at if you are just going through the GUI when you're setting up a EC2 or anything, what you're going to see is by default those settings are not turned off. They will have an unlimited budget. So if you forgot to terminate a EC2 instance or anything, you will be billed very much, because even if you stop VM instance, they're going to charge you for like storage and all, and provisioning for everything. They are going to charge you. So you once you need to you're creating an instance, you need to check through all the settings it will have. It will obviously have a setting for limits. It will have limits. You can set up limits. You can set up limits globally for your account or for your subscription. So you have different subscriptions for one account as well. You can have different subscriptions as well for the same account. uh, and if you have one subscription where you are only doing for development, you're going to set limited budget, and if it's for production, you might set a larger budget, or you might give it a unlimited budget, so that your service never goes down or something like that. So, and you can set up alerts at certain thresholds. You can set up
Yeah.
alerts at like maybe $1,000 or like $100 or something, and you can decide you want to stop the service, you want to continue the service. You can take a decision based on that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. In this, if I have a CI/CD pipeline
Hmm.
for my one of the front end projects
Hmm.
or back end project. So,
Hmm.
what are the security checks I need to check before that, before committing the code?
So generally, you're going to look for role-based access control is implemented or not. Then you're going to check for encryption is there or not. Then you're going to check authentication is there or not. These are the basic three things you need to check for anything. Then if you are having some organizational level security policies, so let's suppose it is a medical client or something like a hospital or something, they will have HIPAA compliance or something, I think it's called. Uh, HIPAA oath, something the doctors take, that they won't disclose the patient's details to anyone, even during police interrogation or anything. So that compliance need to be implemented even on your service, if you are going to have a client as a hospital as a client or something like that. So what you are going to do is you are going to have like a open policy agent or something. That's I think that's something you're having. It's a open source project which you going to which the organization or the platform engineer is going to implement on top of your the Kubernetes, whatever the traffic the Kubernetes gets through the load balancer. It's going to pass it through the OPA, the uh, OPA, and if it doesn't pass the policies, it's going to reject, and you are not going to you are going to get like a bad request or something error, and you won't be able to proceed ahead with whatever request you have sent. So those are the examples of how policy are implemented in C in CI and CD. Like I meant in organization level, if you want for CI implementation, whatever you are implementing code you are pushing to your repository. Let's suppose it's called a dev repository or a feature repository. Whatever you are pushing, the developers are pushing. They need to you can put like in the GitHub actions when you are doing the like testing of that unit testing or like integration testing. You can check there itself if they have implemented these like uh, authentication, uh, encryption, and what was the other thing? Authentication, encryption, and
Yes, I am. So that's all
uh,
from my side.
that's what they are going to implement through the GitHub actions. And you can do the deployment for to like a development environment, and check it there, and you can deploy it to the production based on if it passes in the development environment.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Sairam.
Okay, thank you.
So, Kirti.
Yeah, Saira, we can log off. I will come back to you in some time. Yeah.
Okay.